Wednesday, February 3rd, 2016, room 1060, City Hall in the great City Hall in downtown Los Angeles. I'm joined by my colleagues, Mr. Felipe Fuentes and Mr. Curran Price. Mr. Weezar will not be with us today, and Mr. Harris Dawson is expected to join us shortly. So we have items 1 and 5 are items dealing with the retrofit, one of our most successful endeavors in recent history, providing great leadership for everyone in the state to move to protect our housing stock in our buildings. And we were prepared to move that forward on a consent matter if people want to, or they can make their comments as they have a right to. Both items are part of the final ordinance of the seismic retrofit with a 50% rent pass-through capped at $38. The second ordinance will give landlords more time to comply with the requirements, extending the time period to 3.5 years to obtain their permits of the proposed retrofit. This does not, however, change the 7-year limit to complete the work. These two ordinances represent, and I want to commend both the committee, the advocates on both sides. It's not, my understanding, what I've learned here, it's not typical for all sides to come together and reach a consensus. It is our experience that that works best, and that we can get deals that people can execute throughout the life of the agreement. So we're very proud of everybody who participated. It's a really, really stellar work. And so we are prepared to move these matters forward. Mr. Fuentes, you have comments?
Nope.
Mr. Curran Price?
No, sir.
Okay, so I'm going to ask the CLA to read items 1 on the regular agenda and item 5 on the supplemental to be taken.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Item 1, communication from the city attorney and ordinance amending sections 151.02, 151.7A1, and a variety of other sections of the LA Municipal Code to limit to 50% the costs related to mandatory seismic retrofitting. Item 5 is a city attorney ordinance relative to adjusting time limits to comply with the mandatory seismic retrofitting ordinance.
Okay. I have public comment on number 1. Are people interested in coming forward? Carlos Aguilar, Ruth. Okay, Ruth, come on up. Carlos.
I have to say that's been very difficult to establish exactly what's going on between the pieces of the agenda, and I want to listen. It would be preferable if we were called after some discussion on these items, because the lack of clarity as to exactly what the intent is. It's really hard to know exactly how you feel about something until you can read all this. I went to the city clerk's office today, and they didn't seem to, at first they were having a hard time finding stuff. They did not have a hard copy of this to read down there. I do have some stuff on number 1. I would like you to note that there's no fiscal impact statement or community impact statement on any of these. I think they're important that neighborhood councils and people in the public are taking part in this. Thank you.
Okay, Ruth, thank you very much. Carlos.
Carlos Aguilar, Coalition for Economic Survival. While we support this seismic pass-through proposal, we're concerned with the increase, it will increase the financial instability of some 170,000 tenant households that may face a rent increase as a result of the measure. With over 60% of LA renters now paying unaffordable rents, any additional pass-through will increase their rent burden. A 50-50 cost split with a 30% cap fee is better than the unjust 100% pass-through with a $75 cap. But even at 50-50, landlords still come out ahead. Landlords will recover costs quicker with vacancies. They'll receive tax write-offs and will see property values increase. Tenants may get a safer unit, but will be saddled with a higher rent hike they can't afford. Though we do think the cost to tenants should be even lower, we urge the approval of this proposal. We also urge that you continue to seek other funding to help offset landlord costs, thus lowering the pass-through to tenants.
Thank you. Richard and Michael, just come up.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I'm Richard Otterstrom, past president of the Apartment Association of Greater Los Angeles, and you know that the members of AGLA provide housing for hundreds of thousands of LA residents. I want to congratulate you for getting us to where we are today, but even I need time to get used to the new ordinance. It's still a little bit confusing, a lot of words. Today your committee is charged with clarifying the funding element of the seismic retrofit mandate. After months of work and careful review, this report and ordinance appear to be fair to all parties. The people who worked hard to save and build these units that I'm talking about before 1978 or have purchased them since find themselves forced with this mandate through no fault of their own. While it will be an extra cost to both tenant and owner, it is ultimately not about saving the building, but about saving the tenants' lives. The spirit of this new ordinance, we urge the city to do extensive outreach to help our owners and the tenants understand the law. And like I say, it's difficult. I've already gone through several calls to engineers to try and get them to see if they would do this work. They don't even return my calls. So anyway, the city must, I agree, the last person that was up, continue to aggressively look for sources of financing in order to help pay this so it'll save both the owners and the tenants some money.
Thank you.
Thank you for your efforts and time.
Thank you. Mr. Millen?
Yes. Good afternoon. Michael Millman, M-I-L-L-M-A-N. I'm on Rick's committee, local governmental. I just caution the city attorney when he's drafting this particular ordinance to be very aware of what fine gentlemen in Sacramento did in 1995 when they passed the Costa-Hawkins Fair Housing. Let me just cite you to it. It says, an owner after 1999 may set the initial and subsequent rents on their unit. So assume a vacant unit. Under the state law that preempts anything the city does, the owner is free to set rent based upon the tenant paying for insurance, property taxes, and retrofit. That trumps anything that the city can do. That law was upheld in the Palmer case, and that law was upheld in June of this last year in the California Supreme Court that says that the owner has that right to do it. So let's proceed with caution because we may be inviting a major lawsuit that would turn over the apple cart. I think the city attorney should meet with the AGLA lawyers, make an arrangement that saves your hard work. Thank you.
That's why we work so hard to get these agreements. Thank you. Thelmy?
Good afternoon, council members. My name is Thelmy Perez with the LA Human Right to Housing Collective. Just want to point out that we still have the highest average rent burden in the country. At 47%, tenants cannot afford an increased rent burden. As you know, 8 of the 10 poorest housed residents or housed tenants are paying over 50% of their income just towards rent. So it's a monthly wave of homelessness that we're looking at here in the city of Los Angeles. It is still unclear to us as to why tenants are being asked to split this cost and being asked to pay for infrastructure repairs in the city of Los Angeles. I think I agree with the landlords and with other colleagues that have been up here and that we still need to look for other sources of funding. And lastly, This proposal, I know at least one other speaker said that it's a little unclear, and it appears to address related work with a higher, which could mean even a higher increase in rent burden. 50% is too high. I think we need to look low. We need to lower that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, all comments received. Prepared to move a motion.
So moved.
Moved and seconded. Any objection? So be the order. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, would you like to go to item number 2?
Yes, please.
Okay, item number 2, Los Angeles Housing Community Investment Department and CAO report relative to 5 contracts with terms of 1 year and 2 additional 1-year options in the amount of $42,500 for the lead hazard remediation program.
Good afternoon. My name is Lisa Johnson-Smith from the CAO's office. Our office requests authorization for the Housing Department to execute 5 contracts with 5 firms resulting from a request for proposal to select new contractors for the lead hazard remediation program. Each contract has a 1-year term with 2 additional 1-year options and an annual compensation amount not to exceed $42,500 per contract. Housing Department also requests to submit an application for the HUD fiscal year 2016 NOFA for the lead grant and negotiate and execute a grant agreement with HUD and report back to the mayor and council if successful in the application. There is no impact to the general fund. The recommendation is that the report are in compliance with the city's financial policies and that the proposed program is supported with federal funds from HUD. If you have any questions.
Colleagues, yes, sir.
I do. Thanks for the report. Question, now this is to authorize 5 contracts.
Correct.
How many total contracts do we have citywide addressing this issue?
Actually, I will have to get back to you on that. It's 5? Okay, it's 5 contracts.
Just 5? This was a citywide application?
Yes.
And these are all federal funds, or is there any?
All federal funds. It comes from the special HUD budget for lead-safe homes.
And we've managed this 5 contracts over the past dozen years or so, or we've had more in the past, or this is
Yes.
you, or what?
Yes. The city has received approximately $16 million since 1998 for making homes lead-safe. And as part of that process, we've always used contractors to help us with the outreach. And these are the outreach contractors that we use, 5 that cover the entire city.
And then how many contracts are there to do the actual remediation work or whatever?
These contracts are for outreach to get the applications in.
Right.
The actual work are general contractors that are lead certified, and those vary depending on the scope of work. So it could be a $5,000 lead work, or it could be $25,000. So it varies up and down.
And you have dozens of those contractors that are available to do that work, or just 5 or 6, or how do you parcel that work out?
That process works on a bidding basis. So we do, it's the owner's responsibility to choose the contractor to conduct the work at their property. So they have the option of bringing their own contractors that they know, as long as they meet sort of our requirements within the city. And we do have a list generally available to the owners so they can review it. And if they like, they can choose someone from there. If not, then they can just go ahead and search for their own contractor as long as they're certified by the state.
And then how does one get on your list?
They just call our office.
Okay. Okay, sounds like a good representation. Thank you for the answer. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Any other questions? Mr. Fuentes? Okay, public comment. Linda Kite, Healthy Homes Collaborative. Do Kang, Kiwa, Korean Immigrant Workers Association.
I think we're prepared to waive our comments if you're going to consent with this. But
We are.
excellent. That's all we need to say. Keep doing a good job. Just so you know, we're the best program in the whole country. So.
We indeed
Thank
are.
you. It's good to know.
Is that a consensus with Kang, Inquilinos, and right? Yes. Ruth, do you want to wait for a second? You don't have to make a comment if you don't want to. It's going to be on consent. Oh, come on up. Yes. Sure.
As you've been following in city council, you know the problems at Porter Ranch. You know the problems at Hcid. You know some of the problems at other sites, and you know that we have Superfund sites that need attention here are not getting money. So I'm just raising the broader issue. I also noted in some of the pictures from the cleanup at Hcid that workers that were doing the work there did not have on anything protecting themselves while they were working, and then we're not even wearing gloves. And those are pictures you can reference in the LA Times for yourself. The lead problem is endemic with older houses, and protecting people and getting data on health. When they did the health survey, well, we're only getting a minute instead of 2 minutes here. You want to give me another minute to finish? No?
It's okay. I'll let you finish your sentence or your thought. Go.
I'll finish my thought. My thought is that there was no data available to the grand jury that was set up to look into Hcid, and they could not do their work because they had almost no people had come forward to do the blood tests, because when they did the outreach, which is part of what this is about, is the outreach work. When they did the outreach work to the community, they did not tell people you should get a blood test because of Hcid. If you had, you would have had enough data for the grand jury, and the grand jury said, we can't do this because we don't have the data, or we don't have enough children and infants and pregnant women and everything else in the data. It is now about 10,000 houses or households that are now under consideration. So this seems like minuscule in terms of lead and other pollutants.
Thank you. Motion to approve the CAO report. Move to council.
So moved. Second.
Moved and seconded. We're joined by the esteemed council member, Mr. Harris Dawson. Welcome.
Mr. Chair, that takes us to item number 3, Hcid report relative to releasing an RFP to select contractors to provide lead technical services.
Well, there you go. Please come up and tell us about outreach and the program we're going to do.
The request before you is
Name, please. Your name.
Manuel Bernal, Director of Housing Department. The request before you is we're seeking the authority to go off an RFP to seek out technical services for the lead program. This is technical service in the form of laboratory testing, relocation services, other kinds of services that we need to kind of fulfill the lead grant work. There are currently contracts in place, but they're going to expire on March 31st, 2016. So we need to go out for RFP to get a new set of contractors in place. And the subsequent request is to allow us to extend for 6 months the current contract so we don't have any gap in services for the program.
Great. Colleagues?
Sounds good.
Okay.
Thank you.
Ruth, you want to come back and get another minute, or you're happy with our report?
The item, and I have not seen the documents again on the, but I do note once again that there's no fiscal impact statement, and there's no community impact statement. And I feel like neighborhood councils perhaps are not following the work of this committee, and maybe there's some more direct way that you could inform people. I noted in the last downtown news, which I gave to the council this morning, copies of, where there's an effort now in downtown to have a neighborhood council in Skid Row, and it's part of an article by Kim and in the downtown news. And the main article is looking at, it's a very disingenuous article. You should read it. It's embarrassing almost that it was ever written. I mean,
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Approve Hcid report, move to council. Second. Any objection? No objection, so be the order.
That takes us to item number 4, CAO report relative to allocating up to $9.1 million in CRA excess bond proceeds within Council District 1.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, council members. Josh Romer from the Office of the City Administrative Officer.
Ed Gibson from Housing Community Investment Department.
So the item before you is a transmittal from the CRA LA Bond Oversight Committee. In response to a motion from the First Council District, the Office of Economic and Workforce Development and the Hcid Department were both requested to take a look at the feasibility of expending up to $90.1 million in excess bond proceeds from former redevelopment project areas for the use of continuing affordable housing covenants within those project areas. The report that was submitted, or of the $9.1 million, those funds are spread across 5 former redevelopment project areas, including Pico Unions 1 and 2, Westlake, Atalanta East Side, and Wilshire Center, Koreatown. The report that came from the departments ultimately found that of the 9.1, that 7.6 was eligible for the proposed uses, pursuant to the bond spending plan that allows the city to basically spend the money according to the redevelopment bond covenants. So of the 7.6, 3.7 million will be used to acquire covenants in Pico Union 2. The remaining $3.9 million can be used for affordability covenants in the Westlake recovery. The actions before you that were sent from Bond Oversight Committee also authorize Hcid to have some additional staffing and some consultant services to basically develop and roll out and implement the program.
Thank you. This is obviously very important to me. We have, I think, 260 units were due to expire at the end of this of 2015. And we've got another close to 800 units, a little more than 800 units set to expire. So obviously this has a great importance and urgency for us. Any questions, my colleagues?
No, it is an important resource to preserve. I know citywide, I think there's some 10,000 covenants expiring. Is that true?
15,737 in
What was the number?
years.
Yeah.
And so the best part of a strategy is simply to, we can't build our way out of this.
Right.
We have no chance of building our way out of this, and so we've got to maintain or preserve affordable housing where it exists. That's our first line of defense, and so this is just one small step in that direction. Colleagues, do you have cards? No cards? No. Okay.
Well, I'll move that, Mr. Chair.
Move the report. Move to council.
Second.
Second. No objection. Thank you. Okay. None. Special items now.
Yes. Mr. Chair, would you like to conclude the regular meeting and go to the special? Special item 1 is...
John White, City Clerk. Before you adjourn, you want to call a general public comment for the regular agenda? You could recess this meeting and come back to the general regular meeting.
General public comment. I have you, Ruth, on general public comment. Please join us. I can't find you, but I trust you, so please come on up. Don't be shy. Oh, here you go. Thank you. Come on up, Ruth. Remember, your comments are on our efforts to preserve housing.
Well, one of the ways that you preserve housing is you stop rolling people out of housing in order to put up skyscrapers and other facilities. You put skyscrapers on your public parking lots. You've you using, so the public parking lots are gone, but all the new construction that's going in the big high-rises includes parking for the people in those buildings. If you don't think the cars are going to come out of the building, if they're just, like wealth that you're putting in those spots that you want to keep, that remodeled 1920s car that's worth like $200,000. You can kid yourself, but the cars are going to roll out there. It's going to affect your bike program and everything else. And the epicenter of the suffering today is Skid Row and the downtown area, and they don't see any money in here for the downtown area or for Skid Row in this proposal.
Thank you, Ruth. You've got, don't go back, you've got one more minute on general public comment.
Okay, so a general public comment, I'm very concerned that we're not getting the health data in real time from all of the places where people are suffering from the oil improperly capped and the whole history of oil in Southern California. It used to be all oil wells all through Central City, downtown, Bunker Hill, you name it. And all the infrastructure is there to have another Porter Ranch, and you've got to stop going through and building buildings without any environmental impact report. And an impact report from 5 years ago or 4 years ago or whenever you last looked at some of the projects is not good enough. And just to write it off with this no problem, it's not right.
Thank you. Aaron Rank, Habitat for Humanity, and Mr. Michael Millen.
Good afternoon, council members. My name is Aaron Rank. I'm the president and CEO of Habitat for Humanity of Greater Los Angeles. To date, we've built 247 homes here in the city, about a third of the homes we built throughout the county, and we look forward to doing more. I wanted to let you know today about a program that we have funded by the Home Depot Foundation. It provides critical home repairs for veterans who are living in homes right now in the city of Los Angeles and the county of Los Angeles. I've given the clerk some flyers that you can distribute to your staff, and if you could help us get the word out, that would be fantastic. The grant provides about, on average, $15,000 in critical home repairs like roofs, windows, and things like that to our veteran households in the city. So just here to ask you to help us spread the word.
Thank you for all that you do, and it's really great what you do. I've had an opportunity to work with you guys and
Yes, we appreciate that.
grab a hammer and
Thank
smash
you.
my
We
thumb.
look forward to doing
Thank you.
more.
Mr. Millman.
Yes, good afternoon again. I want to compliment this committee on tough, probing questions about housing. It's 2016, let's strap on our pistoleros and let's deal with some issues that have been overlooked for 2 years. Let's have a good discussion and conversation on who should pay for water. We're still under the drought. We need a 25% reduction. LAHD will not allow the tenants to pay for water. I'm sad to say that I'm disappointed that we worked for 3 years on a bootleg unit amnesty and one man in planning sabotaged it. All the hard work of the tenants and the apartment owners making that deal, he destroyed it by drafting something that's terrible. My members say, why can't tenants be cited for waste or damage? Let's have a meeting here and let's talk about it. Those are 3 issues that need to be addressed by the most powerful, insightful, fair committee in LA, which is yours.
Thank you
for your time.
Thank you very much. I've got Francesca De La Rosa.
Good afternoon. My name is Francesca De La Rosa with Works and the Renters Day Coalition. I'm just here to thank you again, each of the committee members and your staff for continuing to work with us on our Renters Day priorities. We know things are moving, and we're looking forward to having further conversations with each of you in the coming weeks on quality repairs, LS reform, and the creation of a rent registry program. Councilmember Cedillo, a particular thank you to you and your team for beginning to have conversations about Renters Day this year. So we're really excited and look forward to being back here in a couple weeks. Thanks so much.
Thank you. I thank my staff for their work with you. Okay, does that conclude?
Yes.
Okay, we're ready for special item 1.
Yes, special item 1, Los Angeles Housing Community Investment Department report relative to identifying permanent funding sources for the city's domestic violence shelter program.
Okay. Yes, Hcid, please come up and tell us what we've got here.
Good afternoon. My name is Suzette Flynn. I'm with the Housing Community Investment Department. And this is kind of a very short report. We were asked to identify other sources of funds, in part because we are using general funds of about $1.1 million last year to help fund this program, which is funded at about $2.3 million. It provides 473 emergency and transitional beds. When we did an overview of our 8 contractors, we found out that this money only funds approximately 11% of the total costs of the beds and services that we require them to provide, and that they already tap into approximately 12 other funding sources apiece. So we really weren't very successful in identifying a permanent source of funds for those $1.1 million. What we did recommend, and I know what has been done, is that domestic violence shelter be looked at as part of the homeless strategy. And in the committee meeting last week, there was a whole new recommended strategy to look at domestic violence shelter and other services as part of that homeless strategy. And the reason for that is if you are in a domestic violence shelter, you are considered to be homeless by Housing and Urban Development. And so there was a new strategy in the revised Comprehensive Homeless Strategy 9K for additional strategies, women's homeless, domestic violence, that requires us to work with LASA, Domestic Violence Task Force, and some others on looking at a number of these issues that have been raised with respect to the need for domestic violence services and beds. So actually we have a meeting scheduled with LASA on Friday to start looking at that.
Thank you. Questions? Excuse me. Nope.
Nope.
Okay, thank you very much. We're going to note and file that. Ruth, please join us, and Geraldine Stapleton.
Who's first? Ruth?
Go ahead.
I'm so sorry. Are we keeping you? My name is Geraldine Stapleton. I am the current president of the California National Organization for Women. I am a resident of Los Angeles, and I also serve on the Domestic Violence Task Force as my councilman's rep. I'm here to talk about the great need, for beds. 50% of the homeless women are domestic violence victims. And it also crosses the intersection of domestic violence and human trafficking. They can be one and also the same. So this funding, to be able to become permanent and stable is absolutely critical because there's not enough beds to begin with to serve this population. So I'm glad to hear that the report that's going on is going to include it in the homeless strategy. So thank you for your due diligence on this problem.
Thank you. Ruth? And Barry Goldejarb.
Well, I think that one logical place to look for more housing for women and their children who have been faced with domestic violence. They, by nature, lose often a place to live, so they become homeless. I think the churches are a place to look. I know the city has made a, comment. I wish you use the bully pulpit a little bit more on it to ask of churches that and other mosques and synagogues, whatever, to come forth and find safe houses and become part of that program. I mean, there's a lot of people that could be helping each other and would really enjoy it, a lot of the elderly people that can't do a lot else. So I would urge you to look in that direction.
Thank you.
Around. Thank you.
Mari?
Hi, I'm Barry Goldejarb. I am the Associate Director of Community Education Outreach with the Good Shepherd Shelter. We are a domestic violence organization that helps women and children that are victims of domestic violence. And just to echo my colleagues that have already spoken, is I just want to really press on the issue that victims of domestic violence do need really unique housing. And just to really consider their unique needs when developing the housing strategy and designating funds for the new strategy that's being implemented right now. So I make sure the DV voice is heard loud and clear.
Yes.
Okay, thanks so much.
Okay. Okay, thank you. All right. What was the action? Oh, yeah, so that was note and file.
Thank you, sir.
And finally, we have items 2, 3, and 4 of the special meeting. You want to announce that?
Speaker's card for
We've got to get this a little sooner.
no stuff for before.
Mr. Chair, would you like to take item 3 before item 2, or?
Yes, I'd like to move 3 on consent, and then move 2 and 4 together.
Very good. Item 2, communication from the mayor relative to the 42nd program year of the Housing Community Development Consolidated Plan. Item 4 is a motion. Bond and Buscaino are instructing the CLA to identify $235,000 in CDBG or other sources to complete the construction of the shelter by the 1736 Family Crisis Center.
I indicated I wanted to move 3 on consent. Yes. Do 2 and 4 together. Have we done that?
Yeah, I just called out items 2 and 4. We can hear them together.
So 3's done?
Yes.
Okay, good. I see 3 looking at me, and I don't want to make sure they're well taken care of. 2 and 4, please.
Great. Thank you very much, council members. Kevin Keller with the Mayor's Office, Director of Planning and Housing Policy, joined by Jackie Rodriguez, our housing coordinator on the consolidated plan. We're here to talk about item 2. The mayor's transmittal on the consolidated plan. Once again, and I'll turn it over to Jackie for the walkthrough. It's been another difficult year with federal funding. Generally speaking, the overall allocation from HUD remained the same this year, but we did see reductions in program income, which resonates across some of our public services and administration. So we do have a budget for you to transmit that shows public service funding reduced again by 21% for this year. This is on top of a series of years of reductions. And also administration and planning resources have had a 8% reduction from last year. We do have, we'll walk through that, we do have some good news. Some of the good news is that, as Jackie will say, we were under a watch for timeliness of federal expenditures. We have a ratio which is expected that we have no more than 1.5 times our annual allocation at one time. And so through the work of this committee, the mayor's office, the CLA, and the providers and Hcid, we are beneath that number for now, which is a good thing. We'll hit that right there. So without further ado, I'll let Jackie walk us through the proposal.
Good afternoon, council members. The 42nd Program Year Housing and Community Development Consolidated Plan was released on January 29th. The consolidated plan consists of 4 grants: the Community Development Block Grant, Emergency Solutions Grant, Home Investment Partnership Program, and Housing Opportunities with Persons with AIDS. This funding is received from Housing and Urban Development, also known as HUD. The total funding this year is $116,386,596 for all 4 of the grants. Attachment 2 has an itemized line budget that details where those funds are expended. This process began in September 2015. The mayor's office released a letter asking city departments for applications for funding. And because we were uncertain of what the federal budget was, we only took new applications for economic development and neighborhood improvement categories. Hcid and the Commission on Community and Family Services convened a community meeting to inform the general public of their action plan, as well as solicit their input. The summary of that meeting is attachment G, and it also has public comments that were received during the meeting, along with survey results that were issued during that meeting. Overall, the city received nearly 105 requests, approximately $124 million for this program year, which is far below what we have available. Hcid has reviewed all applications for funding eligibility and project readiness. Funding recommendations were based on department review of program eligibility, readiness, and also alignment with the consolidated plan, goals, and community input. As Kevin stated, this year we were on watch, or we were on violation of our timeliness rule. This could have resulted on, if we did not meet this timeliness rule by January 31st of this year, anything that we had over that 1.5 could have been taken by HUD, reduced from our entitlement. We're happy to announce that as of January 31st, the ratio is now at 1.24, which is helpful not only for this year to alleviate the condition that we had last year, but also looking forward, the lower our ratio is, the better we are in place for next year. Oh, I'm having trouble with my notes here. However, in light of these recent issues with timeliness and other HUD regulations that are coming forth, we would like the current expenditure policy, which was, I think, developed in 2003, should have some of these revisions in place. The timeliness, we now do not have like a first in, first out type of accounting system for HUD. This expenditure policy and guidelines should be reflected of the current regulations. As part of this process, attachment F has been developed, and it's future priority projects that have been developed. This is the first step of establishing a multi-year funding policy for projects. A lot of the times, projects are done in stages. So to put the entire amount in 1 year's plan ties up that money and hinders our timeliness for the following year.
And Jackie, just on that, just to highlight that for this proposal, the idea of really spending the money is really important. And so we've worked with the committee on how to identify projects that are really ready to go. And I think we've seen a lot of progress on that. We have our ratio of money in the bank down, which is a good thing. We want to make sure these expenditures are spent. So there was a number of projects, as Jackie said, there's not enough resources this year. There's a number of high qualified projects that have been identified as kind of ready to go when funds can become appreciated. So that's a new concept. We want to make sure we can highlight that. It can be modified, adjusted, but it was an idea of trying to say there's more shovel-ready projects ready. These have been kind of vetted, and here's a list of things that aren't ready this year but may be ready for year 2 or if reprogramming dollars come into place. So just something to highlight.
As Kevin also mentioned, there has been an impact on our caps. So for right now, our public services cap has been reduced by about 21%, or roughly $2.5 million. Also reduced is our administration and planning. That had an 8% decrease from last year. We've had significant cuts. I mean, it's just based on program income, entitlements, et cetera. The mayor's consolidated plan includes these cuts. Cuts were minimized to core public services, including homeless shelter operations, domestic violence, and family source centers. Other critical public services will receive necessary cuts, not because we seek to impose them, but because we don't have space on our cap to continue to fund them. We look forward to, the mayor's office looks forward to working collaboratively with the council and committee in this process. And we'd like to thank you for your time, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Colleagues? Well, all of us share the frustration that this is our third budget here where we're looking at cuts. I hope we could get more support, but it's good that we're doing what we're doing so that we don't aggravate the situation. That's it.
And it's good that we're below that cap.
Yeah, that's some good
Finally.
news. Some good news. And again, we're here today from the CDBG con plan budget. We recognize the mayor has another budget. We want to work together. If there are ways to backfill some really priority items, we recognize it's going to be an ongoing discussion.
Good question. We need to count on the mayor to help us backfill in terms of the new budget. Can we get the CLA up to report on the construction of the emergency shelter in CD11?
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, before we go to item 4, I did want to talk to the CLA about item 2, if that's possible.
Sure.
Very good. These are report back requests for the CLA's office, if you would. On item 5, let's just go through the matrix here. On item 5, aging services delivery system, there's, we just heard from the mayor's office the need for reductions, but I wanted to see if we can get a report back on how the reduction from the 900,000 to the 600,000 is going to impact delivery in the aging services delivery system. Obviously, that's a citywide concern, but I think we all have concerns. So how are we going to mitigate those in your report back? On item number 8, family source system, this is a perennial conversation. If you could report back on how the reduction from the 6.2 million to 5 million, how that's going to impact service delivery in that program. Item number 21, which is the economic development program delivery, my apologies. Report back on that program and how will it be utilized. Specifically, what are those programs? I don't recognize that program. Item 31, home ownership assistance. If you could report back on the geographic breakdown on how it is that by council district that program is helping folks. Special attention to for the Valley, San Fernando Valley, and the rest of Los Angeles. Item number 52 is the neighborhood facility improvement program delivery. How and where will the funds under this program be utilized? It's about $600,000. I don't know sort of what the definition of neighborhood facility is. Is it city? Is it something separate and aside from what I think it might be? So report back on that. And then also, if we could report back on how we might be able to fund the following projects in Council District 7. Along the lines of some of our efforts out there, a Van Nuys facade program for $750,000. And the Bradley Green Alley project for $500,000, if we can get a report back on that. And also, if we could lastly report back on item number 24, it is the Valley Economic Development Corporation, Restore Los Angeles, how it is that we can try to restore the $150,000 for that request. And then lastly, I'm sorry, this is last, a report back on how it is that, and maybe this is more of a policy conversation, colleagues, on how it is that we handle funding in our block grant programs, which historically, when we talk about homelessness issues, a lot of that money sort of flows from here. But in light of the recent policy conversations and the respective committees, I just want to understand how it is that we intersect that conversation. Is it going to be in the budget committee? Is it going to be here? Is it homeless? The appropriations associated with all of those efforts. It'd be, I think, helpful for all of us, in particular me, to understand where that conversation is going to take place. I think we have an opportunity for duplicative conversations, especially when we talk about appropriations. And I'd like to figure out how it is that we get the most bang for our buck. So if we can, I don't know if that's a report back. I think it's subsumed in the homelessness plan, but the process by which we make those appropriations, I think, is going to be really important.
Okay, we'd be happy to add that to the report.
Great, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, Clay McCarter with the CLA's Office and Committee. On item 4, in 2008, Council approved $971,000 in CDBG funding for the 1736 Family Crisis Center shelter. It's a youth shelter. They used that money to purchase a single-family home in CD 11. During construction of the project, which is now ongoing, unforeseen issues were encountered, resulting in the project requiring an additional $235,000 to be completed. So this motion directs our office to identify this funding gap in either CDBG or other funding sources.
Great. Okay. We've got public comment. Ruth, Debbie Nelson, Toby Liana, and Matthew Callahan. Ruth.
Well, I'm not sure what I'm not sure what this facade out in the valley is. If we're talking about the San Fernando Valley and whatever, but I think there is an effort abroad to try to separate people, places where the city doesn't look so good from everybody else through either the special linkage of one of the big projects downtown directly into the metro station, which gives people like a little private entrance for themselves so they don't have to go through Pershing Square or certain other places. You know about it. It's that kind of thing that is destructive. You know, the city's supposed to serve everybody, not just people that have money. Okay.
Thank you. Well stated. Toby?
Yes, hi. I'm Toby from 1736, Senior Director. Since 2008, 1736 and the city have been working on the land acquisition and building improvements to allow us to open an emergency shelter for youth in Mar Vista, one of only 5 licensed non-DCFS restricted shelters for the homeless, abused, runaway, and sex-trafficked youth in the county of LA. There are simply not enough beds in the city for homeless youth, and the sex trafficking industry is forcing more youth to require our life-saving services with an immediacy never before seen in history. During the construction of this project, which is in its very last 6% of construction and only a heartbeat away from opening, we ran short on critical matters of construction and safety accommodations for the property. Examples of these critical matters are the successful resolution of an oil spill that required the construction to come to a halt so that environmental specialists could investigate and report as clear, finding that the ceiling that supports the entire second story was unsupported, which required floor framing to be strengthened and new beams, columns, and footing. A tremendous amount of termite damage, which resulted in complete rebuilding of walls and structures, additional security costs of electrical wiring for security systems pursuant to the growing dangers of the sex trafficking industry. The perimeter concrete block wall collapsed and had to be completely rebuilt.
Finish your thought.
Yeah, and I am. Okay. And foundation underpinning had to take the place to integrate steel and support the structures.
Thank you.
There's more, but I won't read them.
Debbie?
I'm Debbie Nelson, also from 1736, and I'm going to continue. With the requested amendment, we will be able to continue construction into the next several weeks without having to lay off crew or have costly building interruptions. This is a crucial project for the safety of children and for every one of the city's districts. As a sign of the devastating changing times for the children, 1736 was just awarded a $1 million 2-year operating contract by the state of California OES to be a lead agency in our region to shelter and care for human trafficking child and adult victims as our region's lead organization. The Every Child Foundation joins in thanking the city and has awarded 1736, in particular this project, the 2014 one and only $1 million grant, the highest possible, all for capital. Their funds and those of other private donors are fully allocated and have been generous. We thank you for your partnership to keep our children safe. We invite you to our ribbon cutting and grand opening, commemorate your unwavering dedication, and to shake the children's and donors' hands in pride for all. The ribbon cutting is just around the corner, pending only construction completion and state issuance of our license. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Matthew Callahan.
Thank you very much. My name is Matthew Callahan with Los Angeles Partners in Home Ownership. We're a nonprofit organization that works to expand home ownership opportunities for low-income families in the city of Los Angeles. And I'm here today to speak in favor of the mayor's recommendation in item number 2 with respect to interim allocations for additional funding for home ownership services and the consolidated plan allocations. I would like the committee to know that you have a great program. I have an opportunity to work with first-time homebuyers across programs across the country. The city's program, in my opinion, is one of the best and best administered. So continuing these funding allocations is really important for neighborhoods throughout the city and for low-income families. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, just a quick question, please. Based on your experiences, what makes our program so good?
First of all, it's well-funded, thanks to you. Yeah. And second, it's very well administered. It's easy access. It works well with the way the real estate and mortgage system actually works. Some cities and counties who have programs come up with programs and schemes that just don't work with the market. Yours does very well with that. And we're able to help lots of low-income families get into homes. It stabilizes neighborhoods and helps build wealth for these families. You've got a great program.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Colleagues? Okay. Recommendations. I would like to instruct the CLA to report on the mayor's proposed 42nd program year con plan and report back in 30 days. Coordination with Hcid.
Mr. Chair, we'd also ask for coordination with the CAO as well.
And coordination with the CAO, of course. On the efforts to expand and prepare additional slum blight reports, status of the Clean Tech Business Incubator, the feasibility of creating a small business loan program, and our community outreach efforts and budget details for the city attorney's residential enforcement program. So that's number 2. And for number 4, we want to instruct the CAO to look for gap funding in the next FSR to allow for the completion of the emergency shelter. Colleagues, motion?
So moved.
Mr. Fuentes' amendments, do you want to include those too?
Yes, of course. They were all laid out very clearly. You have all the amendments?
I do, sir. Thank you.
Yes. Okay. Including all the amendments of Mr. Fuentes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Colleagues, motion? No objection?
So moved.
Will be the order. We are concluded. Thank you, everybody. Meeting is adjourned.